from my hair color to my tattoos, and it's not a button-up situation. And those are the clients that I represent. I want the clients to hire me for me and what I bring to the table. It's the same for all of our partners too. We encourage them to be their own flavor. I think it really connects you to your end customer that way.
Welcome to Own It Season 2. I'm Hilary Saunders, your host, and together with my co-host, Spencer Kroll, we want to thank all of our loyal listeners for tuning in to our inaugural season. If you'd like to revisit Season 1, swing on over to our YouTube channel, which is linked in our show notes, where we now have curated playlists based on topics covered by our guests. To kick off Season 2, we decided to do a little something unorthodox, go figure. I actually get to be the guest. You will hear all about my wild ride from the legal trenches to real estate rebel. This season is jam-packed with the biggest industry leaders in real estate, including 2025 California Association of Realtors President Heather Osier, founder of Revolutionize, Matthew Marks, and industry mogul and president of Side, Steve Capezza, who we lovingly refer to as Caps. We're also launching a new mini podcast episode every month entitled My First Million, where we will hear from an entrepreneur who will share how they made their first million in real estate. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform, like us, leave us a review, and keep an eye out for updates on new episodes. And please, as always, feel free to email us at ownit@side.com. We always love to hear from you. Here's Season 2.
I am Spencer Kroll, the co-host of Own It, so welcome to Own It, and I have the pleasure of interviewing the host of Own It, my lavender-haired host. It's tough to come up with these things. I'm here with Hilary Saunders, who is our Chief Broker Officer, one of the founders of Side.
Thank you for taking the very difficult job of interviewing me.
Well, I am fascinated by your journey, and I've been with the company 4.5 years or somewhere around that. And I remember coming up to San Francisco and sitting with you and meeting you for the first time, and you were so unlike anybody that I had. No, seriously, having been in the very staid, somewhat corporate world of real estate and meeting you, and it was my first foray into the tech industry, and you are just not the, when you think of real estate agent or real estate broker, I have to say, your image is not what comes to mind. And I want to talk to you about your journey and how you went from being an attorney and being a real estate broker to being a founder of a tech brokerage. So where would you like to begin? Can we talk about your legal journey?
Sure, let's do that, because I think it sets a very good foundation as to how I view the real estate industry and where I see its mistakes and opportunities to really raise the bar on things. So while I was in law school, I fell in love with real property and tax. So real sexy stuff. The real property piece was fascinating to me because each property and each transaction is unique. No matter how many you've done before, how many you will do, even if they're right next door to each other, every single piece of property is unique, which is a cool concept. The other piece that fascinated me was that rules and regulations can prohibit you from doing something to a property, but they also can benefit you in some form or fashion, depending on how you invest or how you become a landlord. And then even on top of that, you go so far as to living in rent control places like San Francisco or Santa Monica. And now you're constrained again. And or you can become a slumlord, or you are a tenant and you manipulate the system and you can squeeze every little penny out of these families who have saved their whole lives to become a property owner, and now they're being bled money because they have a bad tenant. Mm-hmm. So that was what fascinated me about property. And then the taxation piece was with estate planning and probate, how the haves were able to build generational wealth and to take advantage of tax laws and loopholes that were created, unfortunately, also by the haves to benefit them and not the have-nots. So the whole separation between those two different groups of people was interesting to me. I didn't agree with it, but it fascinated me. So when I left law school, I practiced in San Francisco real estate litigation, specializing in landlord-tenant.
Oh.
So I went straight into the deep end of literal shit. I had clients of mine who had to evict tenants who had left, who had lost their minds and were literally living with feces in bags.
Mm-hmm.
Got interviewed by the Chronicle about these horror stories that I was dealing with. Long story short.
Well, wait, you got to tell me that one. You got to tell me that one story.
The unfortunate situation was a landlord had a triplex in San Francisco, had a tenant who was a renowned architect, and he unfortunately lost his mind, and was living in his own feces and bagging his urine, and to the point where he got gangrene and had to have his legs amputated. So the landlord could not evict him because now he was a protected class, being disabled, and on the flip side was being sued to install a ramp or an elevator because this was on the second floor. So this whole story and frustration and awfulness on both sides really pushed me out of litigation, and to the point where, you know what, that was nice. I learned a lot. Now I'm going to go and help people buy and sell houses. That sounds much nicer. So I went and was a broker for a big box brokerage at the time, in San Mateo.
Did you like being a litigator, though? Did you like going to court?
I did not like how people used and abused a system to drag out either a trial or a situation, and how you could get so bogged down by paperwork. But I did like understanding the ins and outs of the rules and regulations.
Yeah, and it's funny to find those little loopholes or to find that missing comma or something to make that argument to try to help your client. I did property management for a couple of years and in Santa Monica as well. And what a nightmare. What an absolute nightmare. Not as bad as San Francisco, I don't think, but what a nightmare. So you went into selling homes. Did you have a love of, so you enjoyed the real estate and the tax part. Did you have a love of architecture, homes, or something like that? Or was it just the process that interested you?
No, I was at the time a very avid HGTV connoisseur.
Okay.
All things HGTV. I love decor. I like interior fashion. I like the architectural pieces of it. Not that I'm like, ooh, I'm a modernist person. I just think that it's very fascinating. No matter where you go around the world, you can appreciate how homes are different, how European style properties and apartment blocks are very different than the US and all that stuff. So I really liked being able to also use my knowledge to help buyers get into a property that they may not understand that they can get into because they just don't have the background. And so I worked a lot with first-time buyers because I understood the process. Mm-hmm. And then on the flip side with listings, I focused a lot on probate and estate sales and bankruptcies.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously your legal background came in very handy with that.
Right, which is a niche that I learned very quickly that I was comfortable with, complex transactions, and I could communicate to the client to make them feel very secure in my ability and ultimately make it a very easy transaction for them. So that's where I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it's a skill to keep your shit together, right? So that your clients, maybe you lose it on your own, right? So that your clients do not see how difficult something might be, or they don't realize how close they came to the deal falling apart from the other side.
And I absolutely loved being the go-to person for, say, somebody who is now having to sell a house at the same time they're having to administrate a trust or go through a probate. And I can say, you know what, don't worry about anything. I have a team and we will come in everything, leave it as is, take what you like, and we will either auction off, sell the interior items, we will dispose of or shred the things that you don't need to shred. Mm-hmm. We'll get it ready for sale. We'll take it and we'll make sure that you get the most that we can get you. And you can go off and live your life, and I'll tell you when and where to sign, and then I'll explain the paperwork, but you don't have to worry about this.
That is so cool because there's a competence that comes to that. And we get a lot of people that say, I've never done a probate before. What do I need to know? And it's like, oh, okay. Well, all right, let's talk about, I need to build a rocket to go to the moon. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously not as complex, I do want to say. But things could blow up just as easily in the deal. How long were you in law before you left law?
I've never left.
Well, okay, you're right. You're still an attorney. But when
Yeah.
you left being in a firm,
I left the law firm and went 100% into real estate sales after about 5 years.
and when did you realize that the brokerage model was broken? How many years into that?
I think I was with the company that I joined as a broker 2 years. I learned very quickly that the way that they had it set up, which was similar to a strip mall, where they have an anchor tenant who is, say, the top producer or a couple of them, and they use them to attract other new licensees, other agents. But the company actually makes all their money from the lower producing agents. And the top producer has a sweetheart deal because the company is using them as kind of a showboat, say, hey, join us. This person's really good. You'll learn from them. When in reality, nobody was sharing anything. There was no best practice sharing. Everybody held all their cards really close to the vest because they saw you as their competition. They didn't want to teach you. And when I did have a question, the managing broker who was supposed to give me guidance was off golfing and didn't return calls for 3 days. So I became very disenfranchised very quickly. I wanted to market myself a certain way because I had a certain skill set that was much different from anyone else in the office. And I found myself limited by their branding, their coloring, their fonts, blah, blah, blah. And so the nail in the coffin was when other agents in the office who were quote unquote top producers were coming to me for legal advice. And I said, well, why aren't you talking to the managing broker? Oh, he's too busy, or he doesn't respond, or you actually know what you're talking about. I was like, okay. Well, if you all think what I'm thinking, then I'm just going to leave and open my own shop.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
Yeah, and that was what was it?
HH Realty.
HH Realty.
I'm not the best and not creative. So
Look, I had Spencer Kroll Realty. At least yours had some mystery to it, right? It's funny you said this that it didn't allow you to brand yourself in the way you wanted to because of the fonts and everything. And I forgot about that aspect of it. I was also with the same corporate structure, the same brokerage, and it wasn't as big an issue for me. But for you, you had special sauce. You had something that made you very, very special and made you unique. What I find interesting and where a company like that I think really loses their edge, they could have used you as an anchor tenant, so to speak, of, oh, well, if you're doing a probate, go talk to Hilary and she'll do that. And a company I was with, a previous company, which I liked, it was, if you have an investment property, go talk to Spencer and he'll help you figure out the numbers or something like that. So it was very cooperative that way. And I found that in the bigger box, it's just not cooperative. And of course, what you created with Side is all about how do you want to market yourself and what's your special sauce. And let's put it out there. So I want to talk to you about Side. So you were at this brokerage. Oh, no, you had your own brokerage now at this time. And you were approached by Guy Gal and Ed Wu, right?
Right. So I actually, when I left the big box, I went and opened my brokerage and I opened a law firm at the same time. And I decided that I was going to keep my specialization because I have a master's in law and taxation with a focus on estate planning and probate, that I would just do probate and estate planning because it is a really cool niche to blend them with real estate sales because you are helping people. A lot of times when they buy a home, they typically should, in theory, also have an estate plan because in many, many states, you've crossed over the threshold that if something were to happen to you, if you don't have a trust, then you unfortunately have to go through probate. And that's going to pay the courts, the lawyers unnecessarily when you could have refocused that directly to your heirs.
And all the stress, too. That goes
And all the stress. So for me, I saw it as a holistic approach. How do I help my client, my consumer, purchase a home, obtain security in their estate planning through trust creation, and also then help them at the other end of their lives when either they are having to administer the trust of a family member or go through a probate or become a conservator and then facilitate the sale of their property in a way that they no longer have the stress that they would have had. So from my perspective, it was helped the entirety of the family, help holistically. And I brought that to the conversation when Guy and Ed were doing their investigation on real estate tech and found me because what I had done was unique and they wanted to understand why. Why was it that I was able to do this and other people that they were talking to had said, oh no, we can't go out on our own. And the answer was because one, it's cost prohibitive. Educationally, a lot of people don't understand the ins and outs of creating a company, let alone a brokerage.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
And creating it in a way that is not just compliant with state regulations, Bureau of Real Estate regulations, or any other, regulatory body. So it was one piece that I said, hey, what if we utilized, you guys take the tech. Don't come from tech. I don't know how to code. I don't know what technology can and can't be done. I will trust you, but if it could do all these things, that'd be great. And from my perspective, why don't we really help the true entrepreneur, the business owner, the one who actually realizes that they don't actually own their business when they're at a big box brokerage. Right. They're actually renting it because if they were to get hit by a car or leave, chances are that big box owns their data and also their Rolodex is not worth anything. They can't sell it. They can't merge it. They can't get a valuation. So from my perspective, I wanted to enable top producers to create an actual entity, a company, a brand that they could then see the next big picture. Do they want to hand it down generationally? Do they want to build it up really big and sell it and then retire on an island somewhere? Or do they just want their time back and go live life and be with their kids and, have a good time?
Yeah, that's so beautiful in terms of the succession plan when you're saying when you're with these big boxes and you retire, like, what is there to sell? There's nothing.
You have nothing.
Yeah.
Realtors die.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't retire. They die.
They become parts of probate. And so obviously a huge, was that like something, I'm assuming like Ed and Guy had never heard anything like that before, right? Like this idea.
No, but they also were perplexed as to why there were not more indie brokers because from their perspective, they both created companies and successful ones and were able to sell them. And they were not comprehending what is the higher bar to entry or what is the thing that is actually getting people to not go on their own. And there was at the time, there's less so now, but there was a very big stigma created by the big box that you cannot go on your own because you need me.
Yes.
You need me. And they would tell fantasies of why you need to stay here because I give you leads or I do this or I hold your E&O. Well, the reality is that E&O is not the end all be all, but the big boxes have much higher E&O because they have a lot more lawsuits because they have a lot more agents who have no idea what they're doing.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, I remember when I went out on my own, and the reason I got my broker's license, by the way, is because my split was so terrible.
Oh,
when
yeah,
I first
didn't
started,
even get to that point.
And my split was so terrible because that's where they make their money off the agents that do nothing, right? So if they're going to do 3 deals a year, you might as well get 50% of that. So I got my broker's license so I could be 60-40. Yeah. Right, with that split and still, was barely making a living.
I got frustrated because when I joined that company, they said your split is whatever it was, 60-40 or I don't even remember. And I said, well, I have a law degree, I have experience, and I have a Rolodex because I have all these old clients and I don't need your leads. I don't want your floor time. I don't need any of this stuff that you think that we need. And they said, oh, well, that's just what it is. And I was like, all right, whatever. I was not savvy enough at that point, and I didn't have enough experience to understand that I didn't need them.
Yeah.
But what is frustrating, and I don't think a lot of people realize, is that brokerages, traditional brokerages, make all their money off the 80% of agents who only do 20% of the transactions.
Yeah. Yeah, and off the E&O. That I mean, that
Right.
becomes. I mean, I
That they
couldn't believe
scrape
it.
on.
I couldn't believe that became a. I mean, that's such a profit generator for so many companies. It really. I mean, you want to talk about transparency in the business. That that's something you should look at. All right, so I want to jump ahead a little bit. So you're working on making Side, right? And there's the tech component and there's the real estate component. I found this so fascinating that they were both kind of built at the same time, right? Of here's what we can do with the tech. Oh, this is what we need the tech to do. And there's a lot of interplay there. Tech is not a place where you see a lot of women. You're one of the founders and owners of the company. Did you, A, learning curve, B, any hurdles?
Huge learning curve. I did not understand. I had no experience in venture capital world. I had no experience in technology other than I know how to use computers and stuff, but I can't program. I don't know the limits of what tech can and can't do, or realistically of how fast you can build something or not. And it was really interesting because there was just such a symbiotic relationship between Guy, Ed, and I. And I think it helps that we're of the same age, although I will say that I am the oldest.
Don't talk age with me, please.
But we understood each other,
Sure.
and so there was a trust that came right off the bat, and they basically let me run the brokerage because they trusted that I knew what I was doing, and it was very easy to back that up or test that with our first set of partners that we had. Because immediate feedback was, I'm so appreciative that you know what you're talking about, and you're talking complex transactions in San Francisco where we have not just condos, but tenants in common and other weird things that other markets just don't have. And you can run a file, you understand it. And so they let me handle that piece of the house while they built the technology with my input as to this is what we need, this is not what we need, or pay attention to this now, let's deal with that later. And it was a real eye-opening experience because you're right, there are not a lot of women in tech. There are more now, thank goodness, but I think we need to do a better job of, and Side is at the forefront of this, making sure that we have a large number of representatives in the C-suite, in the leadership level, director or above, and challenge the norms and make it more available. And we reflect this in our partners, right? In our partner companies and our brands, over 51% are women, another 30% are other minority. And so we're putting our money where our mouth is, and we're putting a real change in the industry. So I think it's an exciting situation to be in. There's more work to be done.
Yeah, I think one part of it too is if you feel disenfranchised, right? So minority, woman, whatever it might be, by kind of the larger place, I think you're more apt to say, hell with it. Let me just try this other model then. That might work. I can own my own business. Okay, everyone has been telling me no the whole time. Let me hear yes.
I think authenticity is a big one too. Side, we have built it in a way where we celebrate everyone's differences and let them be their own flavor. I mean, you go from my hair color to my tattoos, and it's not a button-up situation. And those are the clients that I represent. I want the clients to hire me for me and what I bring to the table. It's the same for all of our partners too. We encourage them to be their own flavor. I think it really connects you to your end customer that way.
So problems that we're solving now for the industry, or we have. Obviously, we're in the age of what will soon be the age of the NAR settlements, right, with commission structures and stuff like that. What's your general feeling on it, and how do you feel that we are attacking it?
I think that I'm frustrated with the media's it leads coverage of everything in general. I think it's actually giving us a few steps backwards.
Yeah, that New York Times.
I am bummed. Michael Barbaro, if you listen to this, I'm a big fan of yours, but you need to clean that up. That was not a good episode.
That was awful. That was like they called one person.
I know. But the point is that the overarching industry needs transparency. And unfortunately, due to a handful of bad actors who did not tell the truth and did not explain how commissions or compensation was paid or is paid or has been paid, is unfortunate. And now we're having to clean it up. The reality is compensation has always been negotiable. The best agents, the best brokers out there should demand higher because of their skill set and their abilities and whatever education and experience level that they have and what they do for their clients. So my prediction is that the best agents will be compensated more than historically has been out there. And the reason is that they're going to be able to communicate and show why they deserve a higher pay structure. A lot of agents will leave the industry, thank goodness.
Yeah.
I really hope that our bar to entry is raised. I hope licensing rules get tougher. I hope that there is a shakeup and not just everyone and their Aunt Bertha can get a license. Sorry to the Aunt Berthas out there. But I also predict that true dual agency, when you represent a buyer and a seller in the same transaction,
as the only agent, not the company,
not a company.
Yeah.
Like true dual agency will go away.
I hope it does.
I also do too. I think that there's bigger hills in different states to climb. It's already not allowed in 18 of the states. I hope the rest of the states follow suit. I do really hope that Fannie and Freddie and the lending industry get ahead of buyers being able to compensate their own agents, because buyers do need representation. I think it absolutely silly if you represent yourself in court without a law degree, or even by yourself if you have a law degree and you're self-representing yourself. I question you. I just don't think, I think everybody deserves good representation. And so I really do want us as an industry to challenge the norm and say, you know what, it doesn't matter that this is how it was done or this is how it's been done for the 100 years. It's broken.
Yeah.
Let's fix it. Let's be innovative. Let's push the envelope. Like, why are we such an arcane industry? I don't get it.
Yeah, and that's quite a wish list. So Santa Claus, if you are listening, right? Christmas.
Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, anyone else?
Anybody, Tooth Fairy, if you got some extra time. It is kind of sad because I think we broke it, right? I mean, people working in the industry broke it. To a sense,
people got lazy.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of buyers agents, and I think this is why they get a bad reputation. There's a lot of buyers agents, or just happen to be at the right place, right time. They're sitting at open house, or they're on floor time. I don't even know if floor time still exists, but I don't think so. But
I hope not.
I hope not. It was awful. Yeah, I always hated that. But and so that they would get the buyers that way, and they weren't necessarily qualified. And as I said on something else, I think buyers spend more time looking up a restaurant review on Yelp than they do interviewing agents. And you wouldn't do that with anything else. You wouldn't do that, with a doctor if you're going to have surgery.
You wouldn't do that with changing your oil in your car.
Well, I go to my one guy, but that could explain why my car sucks.
But your one guy, I bet you he does more than 2 oil changes a year.
No, he does. Yeah. No, constantly, and he also lets me go up and down on the lift, or at least he used to. So
value.
That's But one thing I'm going to disagree with you on, if that's okay, is I don't necessarily think that the bar of entry needs to change, because real estate, what's great about it is it gives a chance to so many people. You don't have a college degree or whatever, you want to make this money, you have a high school education, you can get your license if you take these courses. What I think needs to change is agent training. I think that there should be mandatory mentorships or something, because I remember my first deal, the agent so first of all, my mentor from the big box company didn't realize that the way contingencies were lifted had changed. She told me, they're passive. Well, no, they hadn't been passive for like 4 years by the time I got in the business. But the other end of it is I just had no idea what I was doing, and my clients had no idea. I had no idea what I was doing, so I was able to fake it that way. But I think about my files then. I mean, luckily the statute of limitations has passed, and everything went okay. But I remember the agent on the other side representing the buyer came to me later and said, look, I want to help you. I mean, she was very nice.
You did it so poorly.
You did it so poorly.
Wow.
You need help. She was, I mean, we're still friendly to this day. And as a matter of fact, I became her broker of record years later.
I like this story.
Which is kind of funny. But I think we need training to do it. So that's where I see it.
I do agree with you that there needs to be an apprenticeship or a mentorship program to be able to then solely represent clients. The reality is that this is for, I would say, overwhelming majority of either buyers or sellers. This is their largest asset.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, due to wonderful television shows that have glorified the lifestyle of a realtor, have made it seem like this is just a general commodity, like we're selling shoes. Mm-hmm. This is people's life savings. This is their generational family money. This is how they're going to put their kids through college. This is how they're going to do anything. This is going to retire. Like, this is not a light issue. And it drives me nuts when people think that it's just so easy. There's so many steps that go into whether it's purchasing or selling that a trained professional who's been in the industry for umpteen years, who understands the ins, outs, and how to really be a true fiduciary to their client, they are worth their weight in gold.
Yeah, I think that agents need to be the good agents need to be better to articulating what it is that they actually do, right, and how they can benefit them. And I think that this is where training also comes in, or maybe it's part of the licensing. You need to have a better understanding of how mortgages work, right? You need to have a better understanding of how investment properties work. Like even if you don't go into that, take that segment, or at least maybe you get a specialized license. I don't know. But we have people out there, it's the Wild West.
Well, this is where NAR fell short.
Yeah.
Is that their job should have been to educate the public on the complexities of a transaction and why it is important to really have the top-notch realtor. They unfortunately have to cater to the entire real estate population who are members, and they're, at the end of the day, they're all about membership anyways. But they could do better, and I challenge NAR to actually step up and do better.
You hear that, NAR? We're challenging you. We've got to wrap it up. I have a feeling you and I will probably talk again sometime in the future, but I'd love to have you.
I know where to find you, Spencer.
I'd love to have you on the podcast. There's a lot that we do need to keep talking about, and I want to thank you for starting the company, though. Because it is I get to do what I love to do, every day, and I get to work with you, which I also love. But you are changing. You have taken a step to change the way that real estate is done, and so I think that
means the most. Thank you.
I think that's really important. So now you have to do version 2.0 or 3.0 of that. So don't get lazy.
I will not.
Hilary, where can people find you?
All the lovely places. On Instagram, it's Hill Hedemark. You can always find me at side.com, and of course our lovely podcasts, which you're listening to. So subscribe and like us.
All right. Well, that is this episode of Own It. And Hilary, thank you very much for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.